My entire world shattered in a heartbeat. One second, I was trying to decide on a color for our wedding invitations, just completely lost in the beautiful future I was so sure we were building. The next, I found out that the man I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with, the man I trusted more than anyone, was living a complete, devastating double life. This is the story of his betrayal and the absolute shockwave that came after. It's funny, the tricks your mind plays to protect you. Even now, thinking back to how we started, my brain wants to wrap it all in this soft, perfect glow, like a scene from a movie. We met 5 years ago, in the most normal way possible, in line for coffee. He made a joke about my ridiculously complicated order. I laughed, and by the time we had our drinks, he had my number. It was just easy. Our relationship felt like coming home. He was my calm, the one person who just got the parts of me I never had to explain. We built this life together, not with big, dramatic gestures, but with these quiet, comfortable moments. Shared jokes, late night talks, and what I thought was this deep, unbreakable trust. When he proposed, it was everything I ever dreamed of. We were on our yearly trip to the coast, standing on a cliff watching the sunset. He got down on one knee with the ring we'd seen in a vintage shop months before, and he talked about our future. A house with a garden, a clumsy golden retriever, 2 kids, maybe 3. He talked about us growing old together, and when I looked into his eyes, I saw my whole life right there. I said yes without a single doubt in my mind. The next 6 months were a blur of happy chaos. We'd put a deposit on a venue, I'd found my dress, and our nights were spent talking about guest lists and where to go for our honeymoon. Every little plan felt like another brick in the foundation of the life we were building. I honestly thought I was the luckiest person alive. I had a man who loved me and a future that felt so bright and certain. I thought I was standing in a house made of stone, never seeing that it was actually made of glass, and it was all about to shatter. The first crack was so tiny, I almost talked myself out of seeing it. It started with his phone. For years, his phone was just a phone. It would be on the coffee table, screen up, buzzing with notifications I tease him about. Then, slowly, it started living screen down. He began taking it with him everywhere, even if he was just walking to the kitchen for a glass of water. One time, I picked it up to use the calculator, something I'd done 1,000 times, and he practically dove for it, trying to laugh it off with this weird, tense energy. "Just trying to beat my high score," he said. He didn't play games. Then came the late nights at work, a big project he'd text, "Don't wait up." At first, I was totally supportive. I'd leave a plate for him in the oven and send him little encouraging messages. But the project just never seemed to end. The late nights got more frequent, sometimes eating up whole weekends. When I'd ask what he was working on, he'd get all vague, using corporate buzzwords that went over my head, making me feel like I was being nosy. A space started to grow between us. That easy intimacy we'd always had felt strained. He'd come home late, exhausted, and just scroll through his phone instead of telling me about his day. Our talks became all about wedding logistics and bills with none of the warmth. When I tried to bring it up, to tell him I felt him slipping away, he'd turn it back on me. He'd say I was being insecure, that wedding planning was making me paranoid. And he was so convincing that I actually started to believe him. I felt guilty, like I was the one causing problems when he was already so stressed. My gut was screaming that something was wrong, but the man I loved was telling me it was all in my head. It was this constant battle in my own mind, and it was exhausting. He started mentioning new work friends I'd never heard of. There were team dinners I wasn't invited to, and after-work drinks that lasted for hours. One night, he came home smelling faintly of a perfume that wasn't mine. I mentioned it, and he just laughed. Oh, Sarah from accounting must have hugged me goodbye. She practically bathes in that stuff. It was a believable lie, and because I desperately wanted to believe him, I let it go. I ignored that sick feeling in my stomach. Looking back, the signs were all there, like a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to a cliff. But I was so focused on the beautiful view, I refused to look down at the path I was on. The moment of truth wasn't a big, dramatic fight. It was quiet, and that made it so much worse. It was a Tuesday night. He'd fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on after another long day with another vague story. I was at the dining table on our shared iPad looking at flowers for the wedding. And then a green message banner slid down from the top of the screen. It was an iMessage. His account was still synced to the iPad, a little digital ghost from a time when we shared everything. The name on the notification was Jessica. I didn't know any Jessica. The message said, "Can't stop thinking about last night. You are incredible. See you Thursday." My world just stopped. The sound from the TV faded to a low hum. I couldn't breathe. My hands started to shake. I read the words again and again. They didn't make sense. My brain scrambled for any other explanation. A prank? A wrong number? Anything but what it was. My finger felt like it belonged to someone else as I tapped the notification. The message thread opened, and my life as I knew it ended. It wasn't just one message. It was months of them. A whole secret life, right there in little blue and gray bubbles. There were hundreds of messages, going back almost a year. An entire history. They had pet names, inside jokes. "Good morning, handsome. I miss your face." They talked about dates they went on, movies they saw. A weekend trip to a bed and breakfast 2 towns over. A weekend he told me he was at a work conference. Then I saw the pictures. Selfies of them at a bar, her head on his shoulder, a picture of him smiling bigger than I had seen him smile in months, with her caption, "My man." And then I saw it. A photo of a necklace he'd given her. The exact same necklace I had helped him pick out for his sister's birthday. The shock hit me like a physical force. It was a cold wave that started in my feet and crawled up my body until I was completely numb. I felt like I was floating outside myself, just watching this horrible movie. My stomach churned and I felt sick. The air was so thick I couldn't get enough in my lungs. It wasn't just finding a lie. It was realizing that the last year of my life, the future I was planning minute by minute, was a complete fantasy. The man sleeping on my couch was a stranger. The love I thought was the foundation of my world was a ghost. The betrayal was so complete, it felt like it hollowed me out, leaving nothing inside but a ringing silence. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. The shock had me frozen. I stood up, holding the iPad like it was a slab of concrete. I walked over to the couch, feeling like I was moving through water. I just stood there for a second, looking at his sleeping face. The face I loved. The face of a total stranger. "Liam?" I said. My voice was calm. It didn't even sound like me. "Wake up." He stirred and blinked his eyes open. He smiled when he saw me, that sleepy, soft smile he'd given me 1,000 times before. It felt like a knife twisting in my stomach. "Hey you," he mumbled. "Is everything okay?" I didn't say anything. I just held out the iPad, the screen still glowing with their secret life. I watched his smile disappear. I saw confusion, then horror, and then just pure panic wash over his face. He shot upright. "What is that?" he snapped, his voice sharp. "You tell me, Liam. Who is Jessica?" The denial came first. Of course it did. "It's nothing," he said, snatching the iPad away from me. "It's not what it looks like. We're just friends." The classic cowardly first defense. "Just friends?" I asked, and my voice finally started to shake. "Friends don't say these things to each other. Friends don't go on secret weekend trips. Friends don't get the necklace I helped you buy for your sister." His face just crumpled. And then the lies started pouring out like a frantic waterfall of excuses. He tried to blame her, saying she came on to him. He tried to blame me, saying I'd been distant and so stressed about the wedding. He tried to downplay it by saying it just happened and didn't mean anything. That's when the ice inside me finally cracked. The numbness shattered, and a tidal wave of rage and hurt and pain crashed through me. "Didn't mean anything?" I screamed, the sound tearing out of my throat. "Did I mean anything? Did our future mean anything? The vows we were about to take?" He just sat there with his head in his hands, repeating, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." But the words were just noise. They meant nothing. The man I was going to marry hadn't just broken my trust, he'd completely destroyed it. He'd taken the reality we shared and exposed it as my own one-sided dream. And in that moment, cutting through all the pain and confusion, I knew with absolute certainty it was over. He packed a bag and left that night. There was no more yelling, no more crying. Just a horrible, echoing silence in the apartment that used to be our home. The days that followed were a blur of painful phone calls. Canceling the venue, calling the caterer, telling my family and friends that the wedding was off. Every single call was like a new shot of humiliation and heartbreak. The betrayal did a number on my head. It was more than just being sad. It felt like a real trauma. I had nightmares and his lies would just pop into my head out of nowhere. I felt this constant anxiety that made it hard to even get through the day. His cheating didn't just end our relationship, it wrecked my self-esteem and my ability to trust my own instincts. I felt so stupid for not seeing it, for believing him. Healing has been slow. It's definitely not a straight line. It started with letting myself actually grieve the future I lost. It's involved a lot of therapy, leaning on friends who reminded me who I was, and slowly, very slowly, learning to trust myself again. The biggest thing I've learned is that his betrayal wasn't about my worth. It was about his lack of character. I'm still rebuilding. Some days are still really hard, but I'm not that girl anymore, the one who believed in a perfect story. I'm a woman who survived her world falling apart and is now building a new one on a foundation of her own strength. It's a painful journey, but at least this time it's real, and it's mine. If you've ever had your trust completely shattered, I'd love to hear how you started to move forward in the comments. Your story might really help someone who's in that dark place right now. And if you'd like to hear more, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for listening.